Come and knock on our door.
Come and knock on our door.
Take a step that is new.
Take a step with a Jew.
Where the kisses are hers and his. Three's company too.
What a voice, Mike Romanelli. Every time you sing, it's like a wake-up call to singers that they should learn from you.
What am I, Gilbert Gottfried over here?
A little bit. A little bit.
Come and knock on my door.
Take a step that is new.
May his memory be a blessing.
May his memory be a blessing.
What happens when three high school friends reunite during a Trump apocalypse? I'll tell you what happens. They do a podcast, little buddy.
The Iran 2 Electric Boogaloo episode.
You are watching Generation Exile.
So, unfortunately, flash! Attention, Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea. The U.S. appears to be on a war footing. That is the big news this week. Last week, you guys, we were talking about the Israeli attack on Iran. Well, guess what happened in the last week?
They made up and everyone went home.
No, Dave.
Hummus.
No, Jeremy. The U.S. has entered the conflict with Iran. On Saturday, June 21st, B-2 stealth bombers flew into Iran and bombed three of Iran's most important nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. What's that?
2.5.
2.5. Well, there was a sub that launched conventional missiles, not bunker busters.
No, but only that third structure, the Fordo, was
that's the
only
mountain
sort of partially hit and partially destroyed. So I call that 2.5.
Well, Jeremy, you obviously didn't hear Donald Trump's tweet on Truth Social, or Truth on Tweet Social. If I may quote, "Tonight, I can report to the world the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated." Completely and totally obliterated. Now, not only does that smack of hubris unbefitting a commander-in-chief and a wartime president, as do a lot of his others, but sure enough, what do we find out today? There might be 400 kilograms of uranium missing from this deep underground facility. I have a quick share. You guys might have seen this image.
Yeah, that's all the trucks leaving the day or two before.
Before the bombings.
Yep.
So, there was enough forethought or wherewithal.
What are we doing? What has happened to war? Like, we grew up on these wars of, just Vietnam and Korea, World War I and II, where it was, the stuff of novels and films depicting how hellish war is. And now war is, Donald Trump calling Iran and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna bomb you. You should probably avoid the bombs." Like, what happened to us? Is Israel doing that? Are other countries?
I applaud this new gentlemanly approach to war.
Pacifist war?
I think a little kindness goes a long way, and I think all this heads up. Yeah,
it sure does go a long way. Imagine how much money we wasted bombing an empty facility as the uranium is being like Smurf fire trucked out. The bucket brigade.
So wait, I didn't hear about this tip off except from you. Can you tell me what you know about that?
Of course, it was released that Iran was given pre-notice that the strike was coming. And I think because of some of Trump's indecisiveness, there was enough time for them to move the centrifuges and clean house before the attack. And I should also point out that Iran returned the favor. I hope I'm not stepping on the rest of your story, but
No, if it unfolds this way, fantastic. That's right.
in the subsequent return attack by Iran on 4 different countries' U.S. bases, they also said, hey, we're going to attack, so make sure, the GIs go out for movie night or, slip out. So it's not just a criticism of how we're fighting wars, but countries in general have become real pussies. No one wants to fight a war anymore. No one wants to hurt anyone. They just want to buy expensive weapons and light. It's like fireworks. That's what we're doing. Our B-2 is launching expensive fireworks. Now, I don't want people to die, but it just seems like, what are we
Sounds
doing?
like you want people to die.
I'd rather they didn't do it in the first place.
Sounds a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it sounds a little bit, though, like if they're going to do it, we might as well put guys down there and have them shoot each other in the face.
Well, if you want to see war that is very non-theatrical, very unglamorous, very gritty, we only have to, cross over to Ukraine and see the fighting that's taking place there. It's a hellish meat grinder. It's a hellish meat grinder, and no one's holding punches.
No, and Ukraine is not calling Russia and saying, "Hey, Vladimir, we are going to drone strike, all of your generals tonight, so make sure you're not home." Ukraine aren't pussies.
We're working on a little airplane project where we might come after your long distance jets, your long range
and by the way, Israel does drop leaflets before they bomb a building. That is a practice of the Israel IDF, where they'll let some community know with leaflets, hey, this structure houses terrorists. It's not going to be there in 40 minutes, so get out of the house. But I don't think Israel does that when they're attacking Iran.
No,
because they're trying to body blow a nuclear program of the terror supporting country that has been launching missile strikes through their subordinates, as we discussed last week. So they must, and the reason I bring this up is that must have been why there was a little bit of a fight this morning with Trump is dropping the F-bomb outside his Air Force One, because Israel was still bombing Iran after the ceasefire that he had instructed. The window had closed, yet Israel was still launching airplanes, and he was tweeting, hey, stop those planes, Israel. Don't bomb. It was ridiculous what was going on this morning.
Let me quote exactly. He said, Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it is a major violation. This is all caps we're talking here, guys.
Right.
Bring your pilots home now. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. This is what he puts out on Truth Social. This is another weird thing with war. Can we stop tweeting about war? How about you put together a nice little speech after maybe the boys have come home safely, you've done a little recon to see and assess how effective the strike was.
Did you see what they were applauding after the strike? That Pete Hegseth had not leaked a signal. That was being celebrated like a good, look at our great army. They didn't even leak the plans on Signal. It's like,
well, they didn't need to. We called them up and told them.
Well, this is
right.
where
you don't need the signal when you're going to tell them. That's right.
This is where I'm so torn, guys, because I think at the end of the day, and I've been doing a little soul searching on this, I think I'm on board with a U.S. strike on Iran, and I'm on board with taking out their nuclear capabilities, or at least doing our best to set them back another couple of years. But I have no confidence in the current administration's ability to, A, think through the full chain of events and plan appropriately, B, be honest with how it's going, and be transparent with what's going on. Hegseth as Secden, come on, this is insanity. You expect me to feel good about going to war with this guy in the seat?
Story,
it's madness.
This story has been unfolding in a very peculiar way, and I think it it didn't make sense until we got to the last piece, because we started hearing that they told Iran. The tip-off was weird. We started hearing that he wanted a ceasefire all of a sudden, which was weird. Like, he bombed them and then said, all right, ceasefire.
Yeah, it's like
right?
when you hit your brother, you punch him in the face and then say, truce.
Yeah,
Truce.
exactly. So those were already two weird things. And then they didn't listen to the ceasefire, which wasn't weird. No one thought that that was actually happening. Nobody was like, except the right wing, media sphere went with it hardcore. Like this morning, I delighted in retweeting at least, a dozen or if not more of Fox News hosts, MAGA loyalists, Stephen Miller, cabinet officials saying peace through strength. Donald Trump has just, done what no other president could possibly do, his military strike and then peace. And I was just like, he didn't do any of that. And I said, I even made a video, which I put on Mr. Newberger's Funnies, about my skepticism of his strike, because people were already talking about giving him a Nobel Peace Prize. And it's like, this happens every single time. This guy says stuff on Twitter and the right wing jumps on it as it's truth, and the left wing media jump on it and report it like it's truth. Just because he typed it doesn't mean it's truth. It just means he typed it. The guy's a liar.
And
we know he's a liar.
If you sing his praises, maybe you'll get appointed to a cabinet position, because you certainly won't need to be qualified.
Or if on the media side, which leans left, if they sort of take his news as the truth, they'll get access to the next thing he says. And that's what they want. They want access. So everyone needs to stop sitting on his dick. Sorry to be gross. Because the guy is a liar. And of course we discovered that this was all just a house of cards, by like noon today. Mike, you probably have this as your third leg of this segment. I don't want to.
Well, no, I mean, it is what it is. It's unfolding, in real time, just between over the weekend when I was putting together notes for the Iran segment, Monday, these guys are still trading fire. Is there a ceasefire? Only Trump seems to believe in the ceasefire. He seems really invested in it and getting cranky with what inevitably is I don't know how it was set up. There was like a 12-hour delay between.
It was so confusing. He didn't say whether
Iran
he was talking.
ceasefire.
Yeah, Iran time or
How is that fair in any reality? So okay, the other guy gets last licks. It's like last licks again. It's like beating up your
Iran
brother.
Fired missiles that killed at least 4 people in the city of Beersheba in Israel, and that was the moment Israel was like, oh, well, we're going to fire back. You just killed our citizens. And that's this morning, at 4 a.m. Israel time, when Trump is yelling at Israel and saying Israel and Iran don't know what the fuck they're doing, because they had planes in the air to retaliate because Iran had killed some citizens of theirs.
And there's another breaking of convention. The president drops an F-bomb. I guess potty mouth is okay now too, in addition to throwing the Constitution out the window.
Yeah.
If only that were my biggest complaint about him, but it doesn't even make the top of the list.
So for me, the intelligence reveal today is sort of makes sense of everything. The intelligence reveal that the nuclear program was not damaged beyond maybe for a few months. I mean, that's the headline of all of this, is that he led his crazy B-2 bombing strike and it set Iran's nuclear program back like a few months.
A little.
That's it.
The centrifuges at Natanz are apparently largely intact.
Tip-top shape. Yep.
I'm sure there's some dust in the air. I'm sure they're going to have to tidy up.
There's an Iranian janitor who's like, God damn it. That's about it.
Once again, I'm left with questions.
Yeah.
About Tulsi Gabbard's.
She wasn't even in the room.
No, the congressional briefing we watched last week where she said Iran
They didn't
has
have
no
the program.
nuclear.
Yes.
So apparently they did.
Yeah, I mean, Iran
Or did they
has
just
like,
or are they just sitting on our uranium that they're not enriching?
yeah, it's like semantics. Like, did they, as soon as they start doing phase 2 with the uranium, where they're activating it and starting weaponizing it, that's when all of a sudden it's a problem. But the threat to Israel is that they could do that at any time. So Netanyahu has been saying for decades, like I think there was a Daily Show montage, we've got to stop Iran from getting these nuclear weapons. They're 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away. Like, just repeated that. But this reveal of the intelligence, it kind of gives me at least some understanding of what was going on. So this morning, if Israel is not listening to Donald Trump and ceasefiring when he says, like, that's unusual because Netanyahu is pretty well allied with Donald Trump, that you would think he'd be listening. But it sounded like he got Trump involved in the first place and then stopped listening to him when it became clear to Israeli intelligence, which I'm sure knew almost immediately that this strike didn't do diddly, that they had to finish the job before the ceasefire or at least get some heavier body blows. That is why I think Trump was cursing like a sailor, because all Trump wants is to put a peace deal notch on his belt and declare himself Nobel, ready.
Right. And call it a day. Say, yep, I won again.
Right.
Isn't it possible too that now that we've used our weapons and our military and our hardware to bomb Iran, we've kind of crossed the threshold where there's sort of no turning back, and Netanyahu can just do whatever the fuck he wants now because he's already got us involved?
There's a whole bunch of that kind of we're in war. Like, we dropped a bomb, and just because of Donald Trump, our like village idiots Twitter behavior for the few days since, it doesn't absolve the fact that we attacked a foreign country with weapon systems. So yeah, right. Iran, who is not reasonable, is being quiet in the sort of guise of being reasonable right now. But they could strike. There could be a soft target strike. They could, clearly they have the means to still fire weaponry.
Well, and this is where I wanted to take us next, which is that since now we have skin in the game, we're a combatant. We flew our planes over your territory. What will Iran's response be? There's been talk about whether they will close the Strait of Hormuz. So the Strait of Hormuz is a very narrow waterway through which about 20% of the global supply of oil transits on a daily basis. And it's very narrow, hence Strait of Hormuz. It's like 20 miles wide. And in some places, the navigable channel is only 2 miles wide. So Iran has real estate right there by the strait, and they can launch missiles there. They can mine the strait. They can do all sorts of nasty things to make a
huge population of bovine strumpets. Hormuz.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh Jesus.
Oh man. That
Jeremy, did you ever know you were my hero? You're everything I hoped I could be.
You guys are the only people in the world that would like that joke.
I don't think we did.
Once I figured it out, once I figured it out, I kind of liked it.
No, I'm into it. I'm definitely into it.
I feel like Gary Larson's spirit came, into the room for that particular joke. But yes, Iran's holding the cards. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out that the only time in my life I've ever heard the word strumpet used is by you.
Yeah, that's deep lodge.
You've been using it. You've been using it since high school.
Now, closing the Strait of Hormuz would not necessarily be as devastating for the United States as it might have been in a different time.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the last 20 years, there has been a fracking revolution, and the U.S. is now a net exporter of energy, though we still use a ton of it. And I'm not saying it won't mess up our logistics, but it's not. It's more likely to be very painful for China and Asia that consumes a lot of the oil coming out of the Gulf and is headed that
Right.
way because we do have our own resources and other channels.
Trump
But
made
that's
some
just
statement to China about oil from his flight to The Hague, which he was heading to today, which unfortunately he's going there just to visit. The statement he made was something to the effect of, you're welcome, China, for me helping, keep your oil prices down or something like that. I assume that's directly related to what you just said.
Well, yeah, and that's so. I mean, closing the strait is just one possibility, and what would that be the worst case scenario? No, because I can think of other worst case scenarios.
Dirty bomb.
Dirty bomb, or even Russia. I don't know if it was Putin himself or Medvedev, his little puppet master, who said, "Well, somebody could always give Iran a nuclear weapon,"
Yeah.
which is alarmingly true. And, if you think about it, Russia has a lot to gain from making oil prices go way up, because that's their bread and butter. That's funding the war. And if they can make oil prices go from about $70 a barrel to $100 a barrel, because of problems in the strait or because of perceptions of risk, I think Putin would do it.
Yeah. He also
dirty
is a little
bomb.
busy right now.
Yeah, he's a little busy, but I'm sure he's not going to be too busy to exploit an horrific opportunity like this. Other possibilities for... Yeah.
I was just going to say that we have to kind of take our role in this as like a separate entity of the evolving things that are happening in the region. So Israel attacked Iran, which on the surface feels like from out of nowhere, Israel attacking another country. If you sort of pay attention to the region, you know that Israel's been attacked since October 7th and before by Iran's sort of puppet groups, and had come to a decision that they were not going to just take that anymore. And that was their stated MO for attacking Iran. You may not agree with that. You may hate Israel, whatever you watch. I don't mean you guys, but whoever's watching, that is what they stated as their reasoning. So we're sort of irrelevant, especially now that the mission we launched was sort of lame. It was like performative. Everything Trump does is performative. Coming down the hallway with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth in their little hero walk formation, everything is just performative. And then he gets more angry, Trump, about the intelligence leak saying, hey, they didn't really hit that much. They didn't stop the nuclear program for longer than a few months. Or when he's contradicted that the two countries that he thought he could just interject, he sees everyone as like a co-op board, person at Mar-a-Lago, where he could just tell them what to do, friendly up with this one, friendly up with that one, screw that guy's wife. But these are like global leaders, and they're not like MAGA people who are just sort of all on board for Trump and whatever he says. They have other ideas about how things should go. So I feel like we're probably irrelevant to that fight, and it's just a matter of what Israel and Iran's willingness for damaging each other is. And as we've seen in past fights in the Middle East, they do reach a threshold where they feel like they've damaged enough to say, oh, we won that one. And then it just sort of dies down for a period.
Yeah,
that's probably what is happening.
Iran was declaring victory today because they fired their missiles back, and now it's over.
We don't see what happens in Iran. They have a closed society, so we have no idea what damage was done, for reals by Israel. I mean, the American damage is slowly leaking, but we don't really know death tolls or anything like that. And quite frankly, the Iranian people they're victims of their own regime's violence.
Absolutely.
Which is like the bigger story. And if Israel and America and any other country that's sort of fighting with Iran was really smart, they would be trying to empower from within the sort of might that can topple down this religious zealot Khomeini and his mullahs. Because you take them out, then you've eliminated like a 42-year-old revolution that has been oppressive and Talibanish in its history.
I think the Iranians might be upset at you comparing them to the Taliban, because the Iranians were first with oppression. The Taliban came after. They stole everything from the Iranians.
Right. They co-opted that. They
yeah, it was cultural appropriation.
Yes. Inappropriate. That's the word.
Yeah.
We've been thinking about this since we were kids, right?
And there was the Iran hostage thing.
Yeah,
that was like my
first memory.
Yeah, that was my first knowledge of Iran, was when they took hostages.
The Islamic Revolution in Iran was 1979, so we were about 6. Yeah. And it was huge news, and it was a big upset because we had this great ally in the Shah of Iran in the Middle East, reliable and, backable, sell them weapons. All of a sudden, these Islamic fundamentalists take over, and they start holding our people hostage, and they are very, very anti-Western.
They essentially said, Shah, nah.
Oh, my God.
That's a terrible.
We're gonna put together a compile.
Yeah. I heard the Shah is not such like a wonderful person either. Like corrupt and that kind of thing. I mean,
he's a Khomeiniac.
Khomeiniac. Isn't it funny that they replaced Khomeini with Khomeini?
I know. You say Khomeini, I say Khomeini. Khomeini.
Let's make it more confusing. So, yeah.
The next Shah will be named Dennis.
Shah Dennis.
Yeah.
The Shah of Iran's grandson, I believe, is alive and living in exile and is, I think, looking into potentially queuing himself up to
Does he
take
have
over.
A podcast?
He should get one if he doesn't have one.
He doesn't have Stuart Pankin in his corner, I'll tell you that much.
Can you fucking imagine that the Shah is having a podcast and Stuart Pankin is his first cameo guest? Can you imagine?
Well, one of the things I fear is that Trump will be gone and a vengeful Iran may, years from now, strike, and everybody will say, oh, the fucking Democrats can't keep us safe. We need someone like Trump again.
Right. Yeah.
But we'll know why they're doing it, because
that's pretty
if you
much
put
how it
yourself
goes.
If you put yourself in Iran's shoes for a minute, let's go back to just as recently as 2016, where Barack Obama wants to make a deal to, dial down the nuclear program. And there are two groups of people in Iran among the decision makers, one that are willing to dip their toe and maybe make a deal with the United States, and the others that are like, no way, they're Satan. So somehow the deal makers prevail. We sail a pallet full of cash over to Tehran, which is rather unsightly, to say the least. But their nuclear program, they agree to certain restrictions and monitoring from the IAEA. And, we go along our merry way. Trump comes in, and we touched on this last week, throws that all out the window, maximum pressure, maximum sanctions. And now all the hardliners at that time are like, you see, we told you so. You can't make a deal with the United States.
Win.
And then we go back with Biden and back once again. If you're in Iran's shoes, how could you possibly, believe that you're going to get a fair shake with us?
We have to hold Trump to his sort of taco moniker, that he went in, bluster first, bombing, and the mission was not a success. They did not stop the nukes, and he immediately wanted peace because Trump always chickens out. He tacoed this Iran attack. And we just have to you got to have Gavin Newsom out there reacting to every single thing Trump says in real time. You can't let him win the cycle, and paint him as the big pussy he is, so that when we get to the sort of natural voting decision days, it's not a question of strong Trump versus weak Democrat. It's been sort of hammered home that this guy is a pussy, and that as soon as he's face to face with sort of threat of trouble that he's not ready for, he chickens out. Or he's just looking for a quick win for TV, and that doesn't help anybody. And I'm starting to see like movement on the deportations from the right. First off, there is like a revolution in the Republican Party. We were talking about it a little bit last
I'm not
week.
buying it.
Well,
Yeah, you're buying it, Jer?
I mean, there are some heavy blows that are happening between like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mark Levin, the war hawks on Fox News, and the sort of dovish America First Steve Bannon crowd. And those are not gentle anymore. Now they're all out nasty. And Trump needs both of those factions in order to win or to keep control. And he doesn't have a unified party right now. That's what he had. They were all in lockstep. I don't know if you guys remember, but our party was sort of fighting about whether Israel is a genocide apartheid state or not. And when it came to Kamala's election, people were calling her apartheid Kamala. And all of a sudden Trump won with Arabs voting for him in Michigan and Latino people voting for him around the country. Well, flash forward to now when even MAGA Latino people have seen their, relatives or friends, grabbed up at the gas station, where, wealthy MAGA corporate guys have lost their workforce in the fields or in the factories to MAGA, ICE goons. We're in like a different place right now. And I even heard Joe Rogan, whose podcast I don't listen to, I just saw a clip on Twitter, saying, hey, if I, knew Trump was going to sort of like pick someone up in the Home Depot parking lot, then I wouldn't have voted for him. It's like,
how did he not know that?
Dude, he said he was going to do that.
Yeah.
We have no champion. I say we. Like, I'm a Democrat. Did you know, guys, that I am a registered Republican? And
that tracks
whole voting
with
life.
The books that were on your parents' shelf when we were little.
I've never changed parties, but suffice to say, I haven't voted for Trump. I didn't vote for George W. Bush. H.W. was the last Republican I voted for.
So you're a rhino.
I am.
So wait,
Truly,
you voted
a white
so in 96 in 96 you voted for Clinton?
Did I vote for? No, I think I voted for Bush. I voted for Bush.
Oh, no, that was Dole in 96. Bush was 92.
Dole. I might have voted for Dole. I actually don't remember. How embarrassing.
Thank you, Michael.
Maybe you did Perot.
Mike
Well,
Romanelli's
I was just
vote
going to say.
was very important to me, even though I didn't win.
Look,
Yes.
even if you did vote for Clinton, I consider him to be the greatest Republican president we've ever had. So,
Oh my goodness, we need to unpack that on another show.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, that's it for the news, guys. Why don't we
Bang up
wrap
job,
it? I'm
Mike.
sure. Thank
Yeah,
you. I'm
excellent.
sure we're going to have more to talk about next week.
it'll be all wrapped up by then.
We will have completely destroyed and obliterated Iran's nuclear program by then. I guarantee it.
You are watching Generation Exile.
Really hate that sad loser, Mr. Newberger.
Who, me?